Thank you for tuning in for the 7th and final episode of our analysis on Palm Springs. If you haven't watched the previous 6 episodes yet, go ahead and watch those, and spoiler alert for Palm Springs ahead. A really interesting thing that this movie does is something that we haven't really touched on, and it's the fact that the start of the movie is well into the time loop for Niles. He's already been looping for a long time by the time Sarah enters the loop with him. The movie handled it brilliantly, giving us little hints that this was going on before it was officially revealed to us. Niles has quotes talking about how time is meaningless, gives a fantastic speech at the wedding, which, to be honest, that never happens, knows everything that's going to happen and when it's going to happen, and he gets with Sarah without fail. So here's one more interesting question that we can ask ourselves. How do other characters recognize when someone else is in a time loop? Coming into this movie, I already knew what to expect, and so seeing Niles do all of these things was just an indicator of what I expected. But what about the people just going about their normal everyday lives? How can you tell that others have the knowledge of the day to come? The simplest way, but also a way that doesn't ensure that someone is stuck in a time loop, is for someone to behave outside their normal spectrum of behavior. The simplest way to spot it is for them to know events happening in the future of that day. Not just big events, but tiny events such as someone saying something ridiculous or a man bending over or something like that. The more ridiculous it would be to predict an event to occur, the more likely that they are in a time loop if they get the prediction correct. There is an argument to be made, however, that they're simply insane. To the untrained eye, a person who predicts events or proclaims that disaster is imminent would look like a crazy person, and that they couldn't possibly know such a thing. This is similar to the Cassandra syndrome, where people generally won't believe a prediction of the future when you proclaim it. We see it in many other time travel cases, and time loops like this one are no exception. Time loopers trend toward a state of basically knowing everything that is going to happen on a given day. So the longer it takes to figure out how to get out, the more likely they are to appear as someone who has accepted that they can't change the catastrophes that happen in the day. So most likely the biggest indicator will be seeing someone making small predictions that come true, or knowing a lot about certain things that they didn't know about before. In the case of Niles and Sarah, however, they didn't know each other prior to the wedding, which means that Sarah wouldn't know how Niles normally acts and would thus have a harder time discerning what was going on. He's just vague enough about being in a time loop that if you didn't know the person, you'd assume that they were just being profound or making a joke when they say something like, "There is no universe where they don't end up together," or "Yesterday, today, tomorrow, it's all the same." In fact, she didn't really realize that Niles was looping until she was looping herself. And that's all I had to say about recognizing when other people are looping, and ultimately the conclusion of my talk about Palm Springs. I hope you enjoyed this movie as much as I did, and I hope you enjoyed this analysis and that it helped you see the movie in a different light and think about other ways to apply the things that were shown in this movie. I'm going to move on to talking about other movies that came out in 2020 and talk about the new ideas that were presented there, and ultimately I plan to compare the works that were finished in the year and see which one is ultimately the best, the most unique, the most contributive to the time travel genre. Thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of this content, go ahead and subscribe. I'm planning on releasing an episode every day. And if you have a favorite time travel film out there, or a favorite time loop movie, something that you would really like to see covered on this channel, please just leave a comment letting me know what you would like to see. I really appreciate any suggestions, and I hope to see you all there in the next episode. Thank you again for watching.